make public, it creates a podcast. And creating a podcast takes time. So when you're recording them, it may take up to 5 minutes just for Google Notebook to create a podcast based on your sources and your customization. So the question becomes, what should you do? You understand my question? What's my question?
Kind of like you got to plan ahead because
Right. Then
it
it's going
takes
to take
time to
five
make
minutes. So
a
what should you do?
podcast.
You're on record, and all of a sudden, when you say, after you customize, you say, I want the podcast to focus on this and generate the podcast. Google's Notebook, the way that it's set up, takes time, takes maybe up to sometimes 5 minutes to produce a recording. So what do you think you should do in that 5 minutes? Um,
Probably just look over the rubric, see if you met all the criteria
okay,
for the
criteria, but
project.
should you still keep on recording?
Oh no, no, you should definitely end the recording early. You
Or
don't want.
either end the recording or pause. Okay. What you do in the 5 minutes, maybe you should go out and take a little stroll around, go outside a bit. You know what I mean? And get some fresh air, right? Rather than trying to impress me that you're looking over the Rubik's Cube. Instead, what I think may be good is to take a couple of deep breaths and maybe take a little jog or something and keep yourself in shape. Okay. But I'm not going to, you don't have to record that part of you taking a jog, but it could be tips on that. Okay. Any comments that we have to do? I'm recording, I'm going live on YouTube. And what we're going to be doing today is we'll be talking about using voice AI, creating a podcast. We'll also cover database management systems. We'll talk about security and controls. We'll talk about roles that you have, and then we'll answer any questions. So before we get started here, do I have any volunteers to moderate the chat, class participation, so we can, if there are any questions that I need to address, myself or Daniel can do it. So do I have any volunteers who would like to monitor the chat? Okay, Heidi, I'll have you do it. And anyone else that wants to, okay, Linnea, go ahead and join her then. So we have you two, and let me know, unmic yourself, turn off, turn on your mics and you can interrupt me. Okay, so we have our lead teaching assistant here, Daniel, who will interject at any time. I give Daniel full permission to just unmic himself and let us know if there's something that we need to do. In the beginning, before I get started, anything you want to let the students know, Daniel?
Just I'm working on a couple changes for the
Okay,
Notebook
so
LM
we'll talk
assignment,
about
so
a
we'll
couple
get
of
there.
changes. We're going to try to refine, it's dynamic. So any problems that we have, we're trying to refine that assignment in a way. That's what you wanted to do, is say, I was going to let you, Dr. Rush, do all your tweaks before I started it, right? That's what thank you. I appreciate those efforts, right? That you see up there, right there. So, okay. We'll talk about it. Okay, so let me share my screen. And when I'm sharing my screen and when you see your screen being shared, you have on the top there where you have screen's entire screen, and or I can share my application windows, and then you have an area where it says advanced, where it has computer audio. That in computer audio, at this point, is this the time where you want to share the sound, Daniel?
Yes.
Okay. all right, that you can share. So I have my sound I'm sharing, and then I want to share my, go back to screens and share my entire screen. So let me go to, you see my screen here with my participants. I'll go back to Chrome. And you see that I'm streaming live here. And you can see Sabrina, you're right underneath me. Here's Sabrina and Morgan. Those glasses look great that we have. Okay, so we're doing this. So let's start with, always we're in our section, our regular section, where we have something called least privilege, that basically what I want in information systems is to give the least privilege to anybody. Sometimes I have the idea of need to know. So if I looked at this right here, this least privilege is that I have the need to know for operation. So let's go to what's due. Everybody can see that's what's due for Monday. Sometimes it was due on Wednesday. Make sure that you realize that our next assignment is due on Monday. Monday is an audit assignment. We'll go over that again for a dynamic voice AI assignment. It's going to be individual. The only difference here is that each person in your group will choose another chapter. And I suggest by the end of this session, everybody have that folder and at least assign each other what chapters you want to focus in on. We have the readings for information security. We have the adaptive assignments for information securities and the quizzes. Last time we met, we had the director of information. He was the chief information security officer. Sometimes they call it CISO for the university, and he was there. And Daniel, let me just ask you a question. Did you send out for him?
Oh, I don't have those lists, the list of the items.
You don't have what list? Of what he said? I'm talking about the email sending to, or I guess.
Yeah, I sent all the Kane links and all that.
You don't have access to it?
I sent the Kane IDs, but I don't have
Okay,
access
that's
to
all.
the.
Did you CC me in it?
I believe so, yeah.
Really? Okay, check on it just to make sure. So we'll
I think
see.
I sent it to both of you.
Okay, great. Okay, no problem. Okay, so let's look at it and see what we have. So if this is the case, Heidi, the audit assignment here, where do I find the instructions to the audit assignment? Under what tab?
For audit assignment instructions.
Perfect. Okay, and under the audit assignment instructions here, our goal here is to look for a dynamic Gen AI assistant for helping for a research assistant, a study assistant. And what I want you to do, Heidi, is we'll pick one product now, which is Notebook LM, Google's product. And later on, we'll look at its competitors. And I want you to look at that, Heidi, and getting to know this product. And a way to getting to know this product is you may want to first look at it and then create a recording of it. And talk about its features and also talk about issues that you found with this product. And also, what I think, if we're going to have to give it material, we might as well give it material that's relevant to us. So Heidi, instead of just choosing some articles randomly from somewhere, some YouTube articles, what I say, let's use the chapters from the book and help us study for the exam. Makes sense to me. What do you think? Heidi, right? So at least in this case, and each person in your group will cover a chapter. And for our sample, we'll do chapter 1, and you guys will do all the other chapters. And you see here that PDF, you can follow along with that PDF of preparing. So the only thing in this assignment as a group is you need to put in a folder, and as a group you have to assign who's going to get each of those chapters. In this case, if not everybody's in the class, I would have those in the class get first dibs, and those others make those assignments to them, those that were not able to come to class. And then this goes step by step. We're making some additions to this, but if you look at it, if you go to if you look at, I'm looking for Notebook LM, which is notebooklmgoogle.com. You can see there, I've created a number of processes, and this is just from chapter 4, an example, where I took our PowerPoint and saved it as a PDF. So you can see here, Notebook LM basically divides it up into 3 panels. One is the sources, so you can put a number of different sources here. You can put in PDFs. Notice since it's a Google product, it does not take natively PowerPoint, PPT, or PPTX. So what I just say is take our PowerPoints that are given to you on Blackboard and just save as a PDF, and then you'll have it straight as added source. But you can add additional sources, and you can see here, you can add, notice what they have here, Heidi, is Google Docs and Google Slides and Google Drive. Well, why don't they have PowerPoints and Word, you think, Heidi? Who's the company that owns Notebook LM?
Is it Google?
It's Google. Even if you didn't know, Heidi, look here. Google, right? YouTube. Who owns YouTube? Google. So they've made it. They want to promote theirs. But you can get around it by doing it as PDFs. But you can do it, and they say supported file types, which this is nice. They say it'll accept PDFs, it'll accept TXT for text files, it'll accept Markdown, it'll store MP3. You can even copy some text and paste it in. So these are examples. They say is most to you: marketing plans, course readings, research notes, meeting transcript, sales documents. So I want you to look at this, Heidi, as one is a university student related program that can be used, but also look at it, could this be used also in business? What uses would it be in business? And Heidi, remind me, what is your major?
Finance and accounting.
Finance and accounting. So for finance and accounting, is there any use for this when looking at financial statements? Basically, maybe looking at that you have to give advice to a number of companies. You may want to look at their marketing plans. You want to look at their business plans. You want to look at their financials, something like that, their sales documents, and then you could have it. So this is the part that you could do once you had that, right? Then in this part, you can see here that you have a study guide that you want to add, a briefing doc, a frequently asked questions, a timeline. And at this point, in the middle of the chat, here is where you'll need to play around with how to prompt it to give you 5 questions. And you may even want to, I would say, give it 5 questions that are the most difficult parts of the chapter, the parts that you're not quite aware of. So you may want to say, rather than give me 5 questions to study for the exam, it may be concentrate on 5 multiple choice questions that talk about controls or risk mitigation. Or in this case, physical controls, access restrictions, something like that. So you can make this specific, and then you'll create then a podcast. When you create the podcast, when you'll be doing it, that takes about 5 minutes. And in that 5 minutes, I suggest that you pause the recording, so you just don't have 5 minutes of blank there, or 5 minutes of where you say, I'm going to check Rubik's or something like that. And at this point, this notice, it says beta, they're checking it out. Once a podcast is created, how you as the owner of creating this notebook, how you can interact with the podcast. So at the interaction of this, you'll see here in the bottom here, you can join. When you play it, you can join the discussion, and it will, in this case, it will create the podcast, but it does not, and save it, but it does not record your voice. So that's why you want another recorder like Zoom to record your interaction with it. And then if you shared it, notice right here, you see the share button? You see this as well? Daniel? Daniel, are you there?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
already
so
put that in.
when you're, even after it does the podcast, right there at the share button, you see that you can make it public access. So what you want to do you see that, that what I want you to do is, this could be just a way in which you can even just copy that screen, Daniel, of where even after you have it done, you go to share
Yeah,
audio.
I'm putting a
in public,
screenshot in the.
and then you can copy that share link. The link has been copied to the clipboard. And then you could open up that copy there. And it would be, here is the link right here. So you can put this link right here, Notebook LM, where it was audio, and you could have that. Heidi, do you understand that?
Yeah.
What do you understand?
Like how to like link the stuff and all that. What you just
Yeah,
explained.
basically, you want the podcast. You can get, what's the beauty, Heidi, is you can get that podcast, just a link to the podcast, and then you could share it. You could share it on your website. You could share it with other people. You could put it in other different places. When we even do a group project, when we do a website, you could even have the podcast talk about your website, and then even on your website, have that link to put in your website that people, you can already say, hey, I got a podcast. Quick and nice. And later on, Heidi will look at other ways to, there are competitors out there making it that the podcast could also have your voice. It could almost like clone your voice, and it's as if you were speaking in the podcast. Sometimes it's a little creepy, but it is available. So we have that. And do you see that that's available, Daniel, as well? So if I go to, let me just even do this. What do I have here?
I'm almost done, like 30 seconds.
Yeah, no, take,
But the
I would rather, Daniel,
sample
take
shows
your
the link
time.
now already.
What?
The sample already shows the link.
Great. Okay, but I'm just saying it'll be nice. Daniel, I'd rather even you take your time, and you know what I mean, rather than rushing it, and then we can, and you can put an announcement there that make sure that you look at the new additions or something like that. Okay, I'm in the audit area. Do you see that, Heidi? I'm in the audit area. Everybody go to the audit area. Anna, go to the audit area. And under assignment groups, you see here group 0. What group are you, Anna?
I'm group 6.
Okay, group C. But you see on group 0 here, have your group, and maybe even yourself, if you haven't done it, already have a folder called Dynamic Voice AI Assignment, and then list each person in your group. And you could even, at this case, Anna, you then give yourself a chapter to review. I'd even start it that way. And Anna, just make sure that everybody just takes a chapter. Really doesn't matter which one. And then if you go into voice dynamics here, notice in that sample, it should look similar to this, where you have your Zoom recording link. And you know what you could even add then, Daniel, is if they've already done that, is you don't have to add yours, but as a possibility of the YouTube streaming link too.
The thing is,
even
if you
add-
do YouTube, you can't pause it.
Oh, you cannot.
Yeah.
Okay, you'd have to make it in 2. Okay, so we'll leave that out. Okay, if they decided to make it as 2, right? You can't just pause in the streaming. That would be good for YouTube to do. And then the Zooming cloud, the new notebook audio link, the Zoom AI companion summary. So make sure that you turn on, right, Heidi, you turn on your AI companion. And this is reflections, issues, and improvement ideas. And this I would add into it. How do you think it can be used for education and maybe for business? Add that as well. On reflections, issue, improvement ideas, where you had issues, for instance, it wasn't recording my issues. Make sure you listen to your Zoom cloud recording link. So some of you are just so excited about doing it, you forget to listen to it, because if you do not have audio, it is not a complete assignment. And then also, as I said, add the notebook LM multiple choice questions that it gave to you with the answer key.
It's updated.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Daniel. So if you see in terms of the assignments there, am I in the wrong one? I'm in H. I should be in, not good. I should be in J. So, yeah, so it's done on all of them, right?
It's done on, well, in the audit, it's done on all of them. In the
It's on all of them. Okay, and then
in the
okay.
normal, I'm doing the H and the
Yeah.
K right now.
I'm doing the wrong one. Okay, so let me just do the J audit.
Yeah, the audit was up to date.
Yeah, okay, so I'm gonna go assignment groups. I have my group assignment, right? My dynamic, and I see my notebook. And now under assignment, that makes so much sense. If, for instance, I go to the first one, right? Right. So let's do the same thing. So in the assignment, group 1, right? Right. And group 2, right? Dynamic voice assignment. And right in here already, dynamic voice assignment for group 2. Put your names here in your groups and what you've assigned as the chapters. Doesn't mean that you've done it already, but this way at least you know that it's done. Right? It's the same thing. So group 1 doesn't even so do it. So it's the same thing. So what I would do is I would already just even assign it just like you did here. Here you didn't know, but this one you had to do some research. It's not much, there's no research to do. Just put your names here. Okay, so that's number 1. That's my audit. Here's my assignment. This is what's due. This is my assignment. Now let me go to my Wiley reading and adaptive. In my Wiley reading and adaptive, you can do a couple of things, right? That I know I have information security. And that's, so if I looked at information security assignment, we're opening the assignment, I could go then. I see here 12 have completed it. So I know that Haley's completed it, and Navarre has completed it, and Mark. Mark, did you have a question for me? Mark, are you here?
Oh yeah, I'm here.
Did you have a
Sorry, I'm
question for
sick,
me,
but
Mark?
yeah, I did have a question. It was on the quiz.
Okay, we're gonna go over it. We'll go over the quiz, Mark. Extra credit for asking. So what Mark said is he did the quiz and he says, "Hey, I'm having issues with the quiz." I looked it up and it seems like it's sometimes multiple choices are a bit confusing. So if I look at it, it basically is talking, Mark, about what? Deliberate threats to information systems, right, Mark? Was that the question?
Yeah, it was something about like
Yeah.
which one does not take
Yeah,
into
yeah. So
account.
let me
I
just
don't know
do
the
this.
exact name, but something.
Sometimes it has some problems. So what I like to do for the Wiley Adaptive, if you're having some issues, just go to Mark, just go to the Wiley Plus course resources, an extra credit mark for class participation and bringing this to our attention. That under, if I think about information security and I go to the section that talks about deliberate threats to information systems. Let's see if it'll come up. There's a couple things I want to make sure that we do. So in this case, it talks about 10 types of deliberate attacks. So Mark, I'm going to go with you as a sample since you brought it up. So will you go with me this time and we'll talk about it? So what do you understand is deliberate? Deliberate, it seems to me, as intentional, right, Mark? That there are many times that someone or a group of people are attacking deliberately versus unintentionally. I got a phishing attack. I didn't realize it. I got an email. They say, go click on this part, or somebody asked me to share my user ID. It's almost all the things that our CISO director said, don't give deliberately, unintentionally. I gave my phone to someone and then they created damage. So they talk about 10 types of ways in which I can have software attacks. They give me it's a good idea to even look at some of these multiple choice questions, the methods of attacks that they do. In this case, they talk about ransomware. So Mark, what is ransomware? Do you have any idea? Mark?
Well, I mean, I'm seeing it on your screen right now, but other than that, like, no.
Yeah, but have you ever heard of ransom? Have you ever heard about anybody
Not
being
previously.
kidnapped and then they ask for ransom? God forbid, they kidnapped and somebody in the family and they turned to the family and they said, give us ransom and we'll return your precious son to you, right? Have you ever heard of that? Mark?
Yeah, I definitely have, but yeah.
So basically what happens with ransomware is instead of grabbing somebody and taking them and saying, hey, we'll give them back if you do such and such, give us money. Instead, there are bad actors that will go into, let's say, the University of Miami's medical center. Have you ever been to the health center, Mark?
Yeah, of course.
Well, of course, not everybody, but unfortunately, maybe, or whatever. But you've been to the health center, and guess what? Do you think they have a computer system? Do you think they have health records on you?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And if let's say you had to do some surgery, some, inpatient surgery, they have it, Mark, and let's say, basically you broke your leg or they had to do a knee replacement or some kind of thing there, God forbid. And then what do they have? They have it on, it's your left knee, right? We have to do some kind of orthoscopic surgery on it. and those bad actors take over the computer and the surgeon can't get into the system. You think that's going to cause any problem? Of course it will. They won't even know who is assigned to that surgeon. They won't even know what leg it's going to be. So basically, you remember we talked about insurance and we talked about transference of risk. Basically, we can transfer the risk. And what I asked our CISO guy, and he said what? That insurance is going to take care of the ransomware. So Mark, how do you think they want money, right? They're just not going to do it on the goodness of their heart. And let's say, hey, we need to be, and they said, you know what? We'll release it. As soon as we get the money, we'll release your computer system and you can start using it. So they go to the insurance company, and a lot of times the insurance company pays. How do you think they pay? In what currency, Mark?
They pay probably crypto.
And crypto, right? They don't, they think that's going to be safer. Sometimes it's not, but they think so. So they don't tell us, but I bet that insurance company has, Bitcoin accounts to pay for that. So these are kind of Bitcoin accounts that they pay for that in terms of their systems, right? And all that theft, everything that's happening there, the identity theft that you've heard about before, that they can take over your identity, they can compromise your identity. And this, Mark, is the table I want everybody to look at. Put this in your notes, Mark. And Anna, make sure you have this table 4.2 in your book. And that is types of software attacks. And that, Mark, that question was not so clear, but this is what they were alluding to. There's some types of attacks of software that require a user action. So if you get, and a user basically is, I'm going to be a user, I'm in my email, and somebody basically tries to send me an email or an instant message that looks legitimate, and it may be they want to acquire some personal information, and I respond, I press on the link. All of these require user actions. A virus, viruses, worms, what we call phishing attacks, spear phishing attacks, whaling attacks. Those, and this is where it is. For that question, what was it? Whatever it is, it's going to be different based on, it's random, Mark, the order that you have. I think for you is question 9. But you see here, remote attacks needing no user action. And that is denial of service attack. This is how they define it. An attacker sends so many requests to a target server that the target server can't manage them successfully. And it basically, sometimes they say system crash. Sometimes they do it, when they're doing like Ticketmaster, or sometimes they're trying to do it for streaming. What was it for? Sometimes for streaming some of these live demand shows and things like that. They'll get so many of those. Those are sometimes are not done intentionally, but these are done intentionally, that the attacker sends so many requests that they get denial of service attack. A distributed denial of service attack is when an attacker takes over many computers and uses the bots. And sometimes what they do in order for the distributed denial of service is why they are so strict in us for our computer network is they'll grab our computers when we're on the university's network, and they'll use our computers without our knowledge attacking other systems. And that's what they call, the attacker uses a form of a botnet that will take many computers to attack it. So this, look back at that question mark and look at remote attacks needing no user action. And was this one of the choices?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so that's what they were talking about. Even though some of these others really don't need a user, when they said a user doesn't need it, these are developed by a programmer. So that's what was confusing about that question, Mark. That when you were looking at backdoor and logic bombs, is the user isn't creating that, the program was. So this is why in that question, they were looking for needing no user action was the denial of service, even though this could be, when we talk about a user, the end user as myself or you, Mark, we're really not taking any action on these, but it was done by us, by the software. Does that answer your question, Mark?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
You're welcome. But why that's so good is everybody else would have the same type of question. So for the exam, I would look at these, knowing these are for the remote attacks. These are for no user action. And this is for developing the system. So these are the ways, and then checking your so let's look at this, Mark. We're on a roll. What type of attack sends numerous requests to a target computer system to cause it to crash? Is it A, virus, B, denial of service, C, Trojan horse, or logic bomb? Mark?
I think it's D, logic bomb.
Okay, requests to target computer system to cause it to crash. What do you think, Anna?
I also thought it would be logic bomb.
Right. Incorrect. And what is it? Mark? Denial of service, right? We talked about it. It's sending so many requests. Remember, Mark, when we were talking about those requests, denial of service, an attacker sends so many information requests to a target computer that the system crashes. So you can see those as well. So this is a way in which to do it. What else I like in this, just so you know, if I choose, let me just choose here, introduction. Let's see if it comes up. Do you see in this case, Heidi, on the side, when I go to the information sources, and it just starts with introduction to information systems, doesn't matter which section I'm in, I can search, I can go to the table of contents, I can go to my notes and my prompts. So you see that in any one that I can do here, I can then basically look at information security controls. And when I look at information security controls, it basically talks about, I know I'm going to be in danger, right? Heidi, I know that I'm at risk. I can't be 100% secure. You agree with me, Heidi? It doesn't matter, right? You go outside, right, and get in your car, right? You know you're not going to be 100% secure. But what do you try to do? You try to do some controls that what? You have some physical controls. When you go to your car, I would suppose that a good thing to do is to lock your car. Do you understand that, Heidi? You agree with me? You want to lock your car. And in this case, with computer systems, you have physical controls. right? Just think about it, the building doors to my computer systems, right? I may have some guards around campus, right? This, who can be doing this? It could be an employee trying to attack. It could be another attacker. I have some kind of, do you have in the university, you have some kind of ID systems that you can get into rooms, get into computer rooms? You do, right? And then you have some kind of access controls, right? That you have some kind of password ID. And then what you can do then, that's kind of an access control, and that's a communication control. So these are controls that I'm going to be using when I'm at risk, and I'm going to try to reduce it. So what you can do, Heidi, you see this diagonal line here? You see that? So on this diagonal line allows you, first of all, gives you the keywords of that chapter. In this case, it's chapter 5. And then what I can do is I can edit it. I can look at some of those keywords. Let me just go back. And at this point, I have in this case, information securities. I can go also to my keywords. I can see my content. And then I can edit it. I can end my session. And once I ended my session, notice I can do a quiz. Do you see that, Heidi? I can do flashcards quiz. I can do a quiz here. And I'll highlight quiz. And then I'll say get started. And basically here I can do some matching. And if I don't want to do matching, it can, I can skip some of these. It can give me an instance. It can give me some flip cards. It can give me, in this case, a field or group of fields in one table that uniquely identifies a row of another table. So it can give me some multiple choice questions. I can give a central repository. So I can do in big data, and I can do others. So you can see that I can have it from chapter 5. I can have it from chapter 4 that I can do. So you'll see in this case, I have chapter 4 for security controls. And in those security controls, you can look at the documentation there. You can get access of all the materials on these physical controls, how to authenticate. Remember when I needed to authenticate someone? And then this is even what our CISO, our Chief Information Systems, said in authentication is something the user has. For instance, he has a smart card, he has a token, he has a regular ID card, something the user does. It can be voice recognition, keystrokes, and basically you can do those something the user knows. For instance, passwords. They ask us to repeat our passwords and change our passwords. I can get a password manager. We talked about multi-factor authorization. Remember our Duo? They're switching our Duo for who knows what. There's sometimes I can do not a password. I can do authorization. And then I have in which of the following best describes access controls. So if I look at those access controls, the best way to do it, basically, Ethan, is one of the following best describes access controls. Do you see this, Ethan?
Yeah.
They only protect against physical intrusion into an organization's facilities. We're talking about access controls. They restrict unauthorized individuals from using information resources. They are purely software-based, and they serve only purposes of checking calculations in an organization. So one of the things you're going to have to do, Ethan, is do multiple choice. So one of the things I would do in multiple choice is sometimes it's confusing. What I would always do is take out the ones that don't seem to make any sense whatsoever. So we're talking about access control. So which ones do you think don't make any sense?
Maybe C.
C doesn't make, they're purely software-based systems. They serve only the purpose of checking calculations. They restrict unauthorized individuals from using information. So what seems to be the best answer? Here they talk about physical and here they're talking about access. So I don't think this is right. So
Not
what do you
that
think?
Yeah. Well, I'd go between B and D and
Well,
prob-
here, look at B and D. They restrict unauthorized individuals. That seems to be right. Do I want to? I would definitely, if you're unauthorized, I don't want you in my system. Don't you think so?
right.
And they serve only the purpose of checking calculations. That doesn't seem to be, also, Ethan, when I see only, I know that's not going to be good. So what do you think, Ethan?
You should go with B.
I think I'll go B. So you understand how I want you to do the exam, some of that, and they're talking about access. How do I gain access to a system? How do I gain access, right, at all, right? They restrict from using what? Information resources. And my information resource could be anywhere. So let me submit, and I'm okay. So that's what I want you to do in looking at any of those. And then they talk about communication controls. What are those? Those are all my firewalls, my virtual private networks that I talk about. Basically, on the internet, basically everything, all that text is readable. So sometimes what people say is they want something more private. So that's called a virtual private network, where my regular internet is not private. And then I want basically to consist of ways in which communication controls. I don't want unauthorized people in my system. I'll create some kind of wall. It can be a firewall, it can be hardware, it can be software, it could be some basically encryption in which even if they get my data, they can't read it. So these are ideas in which they do, and these are examples of these firewalls. Always when I have a cloud, that means a browser, that means the internet, right? And then I have some kind of way in which they're not going to allow me into the system. So this is the idea of which I have the systems that I don't want my text that somebody can just read it easily. What encrypted means that it's going to be locked down, that it's not going to be easily read. Does it mean that no one could read it? Of course not. So these are kind of ways in which they're talking about it, the roles of applying then application controls. So these are the role. If I have an application, I want to prevent them people to see my application, to ensure that output is provided only to authorized users, to prevent unauthorized from accessing private networks, to perform actions that are part of the organization's record keeping, to edit input for errors. So what do you think it would be, Avery? So in this case, what are they talking about? Processing controls in application programs. So in application, so what do you think? To edit input data for errors before they're processed, this doesn't seem to be right. To perform actions that are part of the organization's record keeping, no. So it seems like C or D. Which one do you think? Let's choose, doesn't matter. We'll see whether it's right. So Avery, what do you think? Role of processing controls, we want to control how applications are, and what are applications? Applications could be Blackboard is an application, right? So what do you think it would be?
Oh, I think C.
See, so we'll think. And then they'll tell us, what it is. So in this case, they think to perform, to ensure that it probably try again. So they're telling me what to do, and then I can try again, and they'll give it to me again, and you can proceed on it. So you can see, I just wanted to show you of what you can do with these systems, that you can also get it to train you. On Monday, what we're gonna do, Avery, on Monday, what we'll do is I'll give basic a list of terms. I'll give out questions for the exam. And when do we have, in this case, Avery, when do we have our exam?
Was it March 3rd?
March 3rd. That's basically on a Monday. And it's in person. And it's in the second floor, room 204. And it's on the computer, on the university's computers. But could a possibility that we have some issues with those computers? What do you think, Avery? Me being in this business for so long, I have to prepare for what? Backup and recovery, right?
Yeah, I hope there's no issues, but
Yeah,
there
but
could
what should
be.
I do? But I can't guarantee that. Neither can you. So what do you think we should do? Everybody bring their laptop. And on your laptop, you should have the program Respondus. And you'll get a note there, but you'll have the program called Respondus downloaded on your computer, so you'll be able to take the exam if we can't get you a computer to work on. You got that, Avery? Most likely we'll have
Right.
help. Daniel will be one of the proctors in the exam and helping everybody get online, and I appreciate that. Probably be an idea, Daniel, that probably next week to get in touch with those folks to check the computers again, Daniel, on Respondus. And maybe even send them out a note to our IT people in the business school that we're gonna need
Yeah.
them from 3:15 and on. What do you think?
I
Think
can
we'll
do
have
that.
any problems?
Usually there's a few, but
Yeah,
it
there's
ends
a
up being
few,
all
but
right.
at least we're getting, and guess what, Avery? We do a couple of weeks in advance of that. Am I control of, I have no control over those computers in that lab, right? We're talking about control. There's a group that's supposedly having control. So what Daniel graciously does is he checks himself, but he has no access. He doesn't have administrative rights to download anything on those software. So we have to get that IT group from the School of Business to be there ahead of time to check all those computers if they're working properly. And guess what, Avery? Some of those computers sometimes don't work, but we have extra computers there that mostly we don't have to have students use their own laptop. And those students that need more accommodation time are with me there, and they can have more accommodation time there. But usually, Avery, time is not the reason. You know, people finish on time. So the test will be done two parts. One part will be multiple choice questions similar to what can be generated by your assignment, right? By Notebook LM. Another one is you have quizzes all the time that you're taking multiple choice. And then through the book, and you saw even that you can do multiple choice questions on Wiley. And you can ask them. Plus, you can look at other multiple choice. In the audit area, you could look at everybody's multiple choice questions, right, Avery? It'd be interesting to see if they come up with the same questions or different. And then we'll have two open-ended questions. And what I'll do, Avery, since there could be so many different questions I can ask you, I'll give you a number of the questions and I'll choose open-ended questions beforehand, and I'll choose two of them. So you'll know the open-ended questions, you'll know, you won't know which ones are chosen, but you'll see that so you can prepare rather than saying, I could ask you anything. You know, there's so much going on, right? Every week there's something new on Gen AI, you know, that from last week to this week are differences. So that's what I'll be asking. Okay, for preparation for it. Anything else? Sabrina, anything else that I need to go over with you? So next week, what I'll do is I'll do a review with you. And what else? Morgan, anything else that I need to talk about?
Not that I can think of right now.
Okay, all right. So when you think of it, let me know for next time, okay? So let me do attendance. Let's do attendance. And I'll do check-in. We'll get a number. And Daniel, if you'd be so kind and put that in the chat, 8191 in the chat. Once you put in your attendance, you're welcome to leave. If you need to speak with me on any personal issues, please stay with me after class. Otherwise, I'll look forward for your assignments for Monday and your homework, and bring any questions that you have about the assignments or the material, okay? So I'm going to stop sharing, and I'll stay with anybody that needs any questions. And Linnea, thank you so much for volunteering
No
for
problem.
the chat.
I just have a question
Sure. Let me
regarding
just, is this something personal or about the group or what? About,
no, it's about the audit assignment.
yeah, sure. I'm gonna keep the recording on because it may be useful.
Okay. So when I did it, when I made the 5 multiple choice questions and then I asked the host to tell me about the 5 questions, it didn't respond, like it didn't know what I was talking about. So I just read out loud what the questions were and then it talked about them. I don't know if that was okay or if I should
You could
read.
do that, or you could ask any other question. And what does that mean to you, Linnea? What does that mean that it didn't know about those multiple choice questions?
That maybe it wasn't a part of, like, it didn't save.
It wasn't part of the sources. What you could do is take those multiple choice questions ahead of time, put that in your sources, put it in as a text file or paste it. And then it could then see those it's as if they could see those questions, and they create the podcast based on your sources. And sometimes they create based on whatever language model they have. They may know some other things.
Okay.
So if you wanted to redo it, it's up to you, is you would then put the multiple choice questions. You'd create first in the chat, the middle section, those chat, you can copy it and paste it, or take a text file, and because it receives text files, or they said you could even you could paste it in that sources section, and then you could even customize it and say, also concentrate on my multiple choice questions and other possible multiple choice questions, because make it this podcast as if I were a student preparing for an exam.
Okay. So if
And then you could then ask it questions.
okay.
What you found, which was excellent, is on the fly, it doesn't know what you're talking about because it needed to be in sources.
Mhm.
In that middle section of you just chatting, that's for you. An improvement to that notebook LM, you could say, is it should also take the middle section of your chatting and create it as a source. But right now, in terms of the podcast, it takes everything from the source column, not the middle column.
Okay. So the
And I give you basically kudos that you're thinking about it, and you're wondering, what I'm saying? You're wondering why it didn't happen. Another student would just say, oh, it just didn't do it. But you want to think about how the model is. It's not clairvoyant, and it's not even a person that's thinking on the fly. It's not a person.
yes. So should I just put in like the takeaways?
You can put it in the takeaway. What do you think, Daniel? Because Daniel will be grading it.
I think in takeaways it'll work.
Okay.
You put it in takeaway of improvements.
Okay.
one, improvements of what Google could do, and improvements what the user could do to get it to talk about it. Put it in the sources section.
Okay.
Did the audio come out for you?
I'm not sure. I didn't see a link, but I
No,
can
but I'm saying the audio in terms of, could you listen to your, did you listen to your,
I did.
and you heard it. So the other thing you need to do is make the shareable link for your podcast.
Okay.
That you can
saw-
do after making the assignment already.
You can make it after the assignment. You can just go back to your Create Notebook and look at your podcast, and you'll see that share button there and make
Okay.
it public, and then copy the link. But
Thank you.
excellent. Think about it as that way. That's what we're kind of trying to do, because what they'll be using in your future, what you'll be doing, think about it hand in hand and working with the Gen AI. Is you're trying to get it better, and then you'll go to the designers and tell them, hey, this is what we need to do. Or you'll train the users. What's your major?
I'm undeclared.
Okay, but whatever you'll do, right, you're going to be working hand in hand on it. Or
Mhm.
even if you're doing consulting, basically say, hey, you have to figure out ways in which you best can work it. And you see this way's not working. Let's think outside the box and say, let's put it in the source and see what happens.
Okay. All right.
Very good. Think about it that way. Okay, great. Isa, is it personal or about the project?
No, it's just personal. I'm just
Okay, let me just stop then the recording.
okay.
Personal. Remember, need to know.
Oh, but it's not like